You know we ain't squashing no beef, no beef. My dog got dumped in the middle of the road. We leaving this shit in the street. Got some shorties outside and they lurking for me.
What's up, everybody? AOS Podcast is back. It's another Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. This is episode 14, and we are doing a run back because the first show we did was so dope we had to run it back 2 times. So this episode 14, this is part 2 of increasing the 2%, and we have 2 dynamic guests joining us. And so, like always, first-time listeners, like our YouTube page, subscribe to it, the AOS Podcast. Like us on Facebook, the AOS Podcast. And follow us on Twitter, AOS Podcast as well. Before we bring our guests on, we're going to read a quick bio, but we're going to do how we always start off, and we're going to do check-in. So, fellas, I'll kick it off. You see the shirt. Atlanta saved everybody. We got a new president and a vice president, and we're going to have a new Congress and a Senate, and it's going to be great. And so I'm feeling good. Today was Inauguration Wednesday. We had our inauguration watch party at the school. It was amazing, and the kids got to witness history. So I'm feeling good, and I'm excited about this show because I'm going to just sit back and listen. So, Doc, man, how you feeling on this Wednesday?
Hey, man, I'm good, man. Like I said, we started out with the inauguration. We kind of did that pretty much all day. We didn't have students today. So, we kind of did it as a staff, kind of process some of that there. It's a weekend to, my 41st year here on the earth. Last week was my birthday, a week ago today. So I'm feeling real good, man. I'm ready to get this thing rocking and rolling with the squad.
Well, what's up, man? Because that inauguration was early, your time.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. It was starting off like a little bit before school started, so I caught it right before school went on, and I'm feeling good today. We're actually going through a little hiring process here, and so that's how I spent my morning. I haven't had the opportunity to get online and really see a whole lot of what happened. I saw some clips, but overall, I'm doing well. I am excited to be back here with y'all on Wednesday.
Man, that's awesome. And again, like I said, this is part 2. So the first show 2 weeks ago, we had 3 dynamic guests, one from an organization called Block, and then fellas from Profound Gentlemen. And like I said last week, I got the copies in. This is the Profound Gentlemen magazine. I have 7 copies. So if you're interested, shoot us an email, the AOS Podcast at Gmail, and I get that sent out to you. I got 7, first come, first serve. But we're going to jump into the show. And so, Doc, you're going to start off. You're going to read the bio of our first guest, who is not a stranger of the show, and many, when they hear the bio, will know his name. So, Doc, who we bringing up first?
Hey, man, we coming with some firepower tonight. So I'm honored to read the bio of Sharif El-Mekki. Mr. El-Mekki is the founder and CEO of the Center for Black Educator Development. The center exists to ensure there will be equity in the recruitment, training, hiring, and retention of quality educators that reflects the cultural background and share common social political interests of students that they serve. Prior to founding the center, Mr. El-Mekki served as a nationally recognized principal and U.S. Department of Education Principal Ambassador Fellow, and was recently a volunteer member of the Biden-Harris Education Policy Committee. Mr. El-Mekki's school, Mastery Charter Shoemaker, was recognized by President Obama and Oprah Winfrey, and was awarded the prestigious EPIC Award for 3 consecutive years as being amongst the top 3 schools in the country for accelerating student achievement levels. So, hopefully this is not the last time he'll be on here, but let me, people, I bring to you live on the AOS Podcast, Mr. Sharif El-Mekki, better known as the GOAT.
Hey, good to be here, y'all. I don't know about the GOAT, but happy birthday, Doc. Happy birthday.
Appreciate it.
Good to see y'all. Your brother's been getting it in.
Trying to. And, Ball, we got one more guest. I think he's in backstage, so go ahead and take it away.
All right. I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Jonathan C.W. Jones to the podcast. He is a seasoned, award-winning educator, founder of Ideation 4, working with educators, education leaders, schools, districts, nonprofit professionals, and under-resourced communities through grant workshops, coaching, consulting, and innovation. He believes in the power of ideas and helping others realize they have the power to make their ideas into reality. Currently, he's working on a philanthropic innovation called Uplift. So we're looking forward to hearing about that. It's dedicated to celebrating Black male educators in the USA, combining vivid visuals and reflections to combat oppressive experiences. He works for St. Paul Public Schools as an instructional coach and is a proud graduate of HBCU, Xavier University in Louisiana, holds a BA, MA, and K-12 principal licensure. Jonathan, we are excited to welcome you to the AOS podcast.
Good evening, brothers. Thank you for the invite. And I don't know the brother, but I came on right on when he was saying it was his birthday. So happy birthday. And it's an honor to be with all of you tonight.
We appreciate you being with us, Brother Jones. Before we get into the topics, though, because Brother Jones, my daughter is a sophomore down at Zula. So shout out to you. Also, if got some connects down there to help me get some of this scholarship money down there, I appreciate it, bro.
I knew that was coming.
Sir, yes,
I just had a feeling.
It's only right. It's only right.
Hey, I'm just glad to have another HBCU graduate on the screen. So Central State, Xavier University, it's all love here. So
don't forget about the original HBCU, the first HBCU, CU.
Oh, Cheney, you're right, Cheney.
Yeah, come on, bro. Come on, yeah. Come through, HBCU.
Absolutely.
Right.
So Doc, kick us off, man, on the show. What we got in
store? I mean, like you said, today was inauguration Wednesday, man. We put in a new president, historical first Black woman of color. Let me make sure I get it right. Female vice president. So I just want to start off just talking about, like, what do you think the Biden-Harris administration is going to mean to education for Black and brown students? Like, for me personally, I've been through the Clinton administration, I've been through the Bush administration, the Obama, and 45's little thing that he did for 4 years. But do you really think Biden and Harris is going to have an effect on education for Black and brown students? And going back to our topic as well, pushing more Black males into education. So we'll kind of start with that, and that's open to the whole panel. But we'll start with our guests talking to that first.
Well, I'll jump in. I see Jones is taking care of something. I think what my hope is that he doesn't just spend the time reversing what 45 did. I think that component is important, but it's also important to have a vision for what you will do, right? Like, not just what you won't do. And the same thing with here, like, you come in and reversing some unfortunate things like, lack of civil rights. The Department of Ed is supposed to be like a civil rights institution, as it's supposed to support that in a big way. I do think that he'll have a high priority to increase funding to try to augment funding for districts to be able to raise pay, hire more people, and particularly diversity. Like, I've had the opportunity to have several conversations with people in his camp, and I do think they're going to try to find ways to support districts that want to diversify, and that should be every district in the country.
I'll go ahead and chime in. First, I'll start off by saying I definitely don't think I'm going to I'm not going to be holding my breath too much, but I am very hopeful with this administration. And I think one of the things that they're going to need, in addition to a strong vision, in particular for the education sector, they need to hear from us, because it's my strong belief that as educators, as community members, the people who are most affected by issues of race and racism are the same people that have oftentimes the answers and the solutions and the programming to address those inequities. So I'm hoping that he calls on individuals like ourselves and others to help solve some of these inequities directly.
I think that's very powerful, especially in the time with COVID going on. There's a lot of experts out there that might have his ear, or people that haven't been in the trenches on the front lines of education. And just the other day, I know we were talking on a little planning committee, and I talked about just having practitioners be a part of the conversation. And I think that's what's really missing at the higher levels of governor. A lot of times the practitioners, the people on the front line, teachers, school administrators, district leaders, are left on the sidelines and are told what to do and not really brought into the conversation to figure out how to get things done. So I definitely feel like hopefully they'll pull in more of the practitioners, the people that's on the front line doing the work on a day-to-day basis, to kind of hear what their thoughts are about pushing this agenda forward.
Yeah.
Doc, go ahead, Jonathan.
I was going to chime in and just say, I think also with that, I think pulling in individuals, practitioners who are, we talk about, recruitment and retention of Black male educators. One of the key pieces I think that would be significant is that they pull in individuals who aren't necessarily seasoned or not necessarily they're tenured teachers. Pull in some of the first year, some of the third year teachers specifically, and pull in there, because then that's you're telling them, yes, you have value. Hopefully they're coming into the field and they know they have value, but also making that clear that we want to hear your voice and we know that your voice is important.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was talking about today during our interview process, we were talking about how an individual can have an impact on changing culture and making that a focus on a school campus. And I think that it starts with modeling. That's one of the common things that I think that we see as educators, as leaders. We have to model the behaviors, the attitudes that we expect from our students, from our staff, from our communities. And I think that he's started off with naming a Secretary of Ed that's an educator. And as you all just talked about, the voices that our country, that our leadership needs to hear are those practitioners, the ones that are actually on the ground, those who are living it, experiencing it, from staff and parents and students alike. And if we can model that, we take a look at the cabinet, the most diverse cabinet that has ever been in our country. And I think that when we see ourselves in these leadership positions, that sets the tone for what our students can dream about. When they see themselves, they can dream about it and see themselves actually accomplishing those types of goals.
Yeah. I think I see, in relation to education, this Biden-Harris administration as almost like a bridge. I don't think Biden's going to go past the 4 years. And so because there's so many other pressing things that need to happen with the COVID and the economy and things like that, that's going to be his primary focus. And maybe he can set some things up for education for the next administration. So this is kind of like a bridge year. And I agree with Brother El-Mekki, like, don't go in there trying to reverse everything, but go in there trying to improve some things, but laying a foundation for the next administration so we can start having these more robust conversations. So just when it comes to education, just as I see the direction he's going, I just see this as a bridge year. And so I'm not expecting too much in relation to education. I just think we're definitely going to get a better Department of Ed than we've had the previous 4 years, but I don't expect too much of large changes when it comes to education.
I guess, and that's kind of where I was going with the question. We focusing right in here on education, but like I said, today I really reflected back on the administration since Clinton that I've really been an adult and been a part of, and really say, based on who's been in office, has my life or the people in my circle of life really changed dramatically? And I guess that's kind of what I'm getting to. Like, do we really see Biden Harris really doing anything that's going to affect the day-to-day education of students in the classroom? Or is they even have the ability to do that?
I mean, I think whenever when you have someone who's a century, we all recognize, and I've heard all of you say it, and plenty of folks say it, like, what the support that schools need is it's a revolutionary approach. I don't see that. I do see probably more attention for secondary ed. I see support in civil rights. I see trying to provide, maybe block grants or opportunities for states or LEAs, districts to apply for funding to do certain things. But when we're talking about like the radical, approach that most of our districts and schools need, what will like wholly change the experience, the Black and brown experience in schools, I don't think that's going to, happen. And I think his, what he said his priority was to unify the country. The one thing that ain't going to unify the country is making sure that Black and brown folks are whole. That's just going to, we all know about white backlash. We saw it in Charlottesville. We saw it at the Capitol, and we'll see it again. So I think he'll try to be strategic. I think he's going to try to work across the aisle and try to figure out, okay, what do white people have the appetite for, and I think part of our job is to hold him accountable, right? Like, we said this on A Black Hands as well. Like, don't just hold 45 accountable, and then you just like, it was waiting to exhale, and now you're just kicking your feet up and just celebrating his loss and losing sight of the ball and what needs to be happening, right? And I agree, it's a long game, but that accountability piece should not subside just because 45 is out and Biden is in. That would be, a tactical blunder at colossal levels.
Yeah, I don't see a race go. I don't see a race for the top. I don't see a No Child Left Behind, right? I don't see that revolutionary landmark education program or initiative. And I just see, if we don't keep our eye on the ball, speaking of educators, particularly, Black educators and educators of color, these 4 years will skate by and education just be something that just happened. And we got to, and like you said, we got to keep our eye out and hold this administrator accountable to make sure that Black and brown kids can read at an elementary level, right? I want to see that conversation, right? Secondary is great, and college and career readiness, but these kids got to read. And so if you ain't talking about phonemic awareness and things like that for children, then we're not even gonna get what we need to. And so I want to hear that, at least from Biden or definitely from the Secretary of Ed.
So I definitely want to get into our topic, the 2%. So let's kind of put a bow on this. But that's why we're gonna put a bow on this here. We're gonna rip around everybody. I want everybody to kind of share in this. I'll go last. We'll start with our two guests, Brother Jones and El-Mekki, and then we'll go Ball and Dave. 3 to 5 words on what you think the Biden-Harris administration will do for education. 3 to 5 words. Brother Jones, you up first.
3 to 5 words. Looking at increasing Black male educators in particular, looking to increase teachers of color. So 3 to 5 words, I'd say increase. I'm drawing a blank, bros.
So, Brother El-Mekki, jump in and help him out.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, my 3 words would be stabilize the department. Like it's a ish show down there. Well, that's why I'm beyond the 3 words. Stabilize the department. So
Ball.
I'm gonna just use one in leadership. I think that's one of the keys that we need. We need some leadership in this time.
Dave.
Not have any blunders. Just don't fumble. That's it.
See how low our bar is.
Just make it. Just make it.
I only got 2 words. Status quo. I think it's gonna be status quo for the next 4 years. Is what it's gonna be.
Agreed.
So, all right, boss, on you. Let's jump to the next topic.
Yeah. All right. So, let's get into this whole topic of Black male educators. And we really want to lean into our guests and understand what it is that you do around this topic. We want to know how we can get more Black educators into our classrooms, into our school buildings, into our districts. So we would love to hear a little bit more about what you did. We did a little bit in the bios, but you can tell us, the legwork of actually what goes on in your organizations and how you specifically are meeting this need, because we feel like, as school leaders, the 3 of us as the hosts of the show, we're experiencing it. And, there's not a lot of connection. And I know Doc Smith has his BMESTL, he has that network, but we have to create those. We have to build those, because there just aren't enough of us in this sector of education. So can y'all talk to us about what you do and why your organizations are so important to increasing Black educators, Black male educators specifically?
I'll go ahead.
Brother Jones, you want to go first?
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead. So my organization is Ideation 4. In addition to being an educator for the past several years, I've been crafting my skill in the art and science of grant writing. And when we come into the field of education, one of the things that I'm sure a lot of us can relate to, there's a lack of resources. There's a lack of funding. And so I established my company to try to help particularly educators learn more about grant writing, where to find grants, how to apply for grants. What do you do when you get the grants? Am I really ready for a grant? And where are those resources specifically for classroom teachers to offset some of their inequities. So in addition to that, I'm always trying to keep myself aware of what's going on locally. Like, for example, in Minnesota, there's some legislation that's going through. It's called the Increased Teachers of Color Act that's going to be going through again. So I'm trying to always make sure I'm aware of what's going on, and then sharing that information out with all of my networks as much as possible to bring more awareness of what's going on locally in the state. Because I think that's another piece, is that we don't always know what is happening, in particular on the legislation level. In addition to that, I decided that I wanted to start figuring out, how do I build my own network and not relying on someone else. One, to celebrate the work that I'm doing. Two, to recognize my worth. Three, to recognize the worth of all of us. So several years ago, kind of had the idea of creating a publication to celebrate Black male educators. And that's where we ended up creating an annual publication called Uplift, to do some of that work, to try to cultivate and kind of bring together some brothers across the country. And then not only to celebrate them in this publication, but also find out more about them. What is the work they're doing? How can I best support them in the work they're doing? How can we come together currently in a virtual setting to highlight the work we're doing, to speak and uplift our own voice and get through some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis?
I need to get my joint. I got the order form. It's been sitting there on the desk for a long time. I need to get that. I need that Profound Gentleman joint too. That look hot as well. At the Center for Black Educator Development, we really stand on 4 pillars. One is supporting policies that support educational justice issues. We believe that, policy is just really important. We can have, we need a in-out game, grassroots as well as policy. Second part is just this idea of professional learning. So that's our coaching and our mentoring, professional development workshops. We believe that no matter where you are on the continuum, if you are an aspiring educator, if you are a veteran educator, you should always be developing. We look at achievement as not just what should be looked at as students. As a matter of fact, that achievement gap that people are talking about, and they usually ascribe it to children, Black children in particular, brown children. We say the achievement gap is mainly amongst adults, and the gap of education that they have, the background and cultural knowledge that they have, and the gap between what they have and what children need is huge. And that chasm is really important. So we think this professional learning should always be a part of it. The third P, or pillar as we call them, is Black pedagogy. When folks go to college, they are often learn about Piaget, they learn about Horace Mann, they learn about Montessori, they learn about all these philosophies that tend to be grounded in just white experiences, and they don't learn about Dr. Amos or Jawanza Kunjufu and folks like that. They don't hear about LeCount and Octavius Cato and their work. Septima Clark and Ida B. Wells. So all of that, we look at the pedagogy, like what has been successful with Black children? What have Black teachers done? Like LeCount, Caroline LeCount was talking in the 1880s about needing more Black teachers and more Black principals. And we're still saying the same thing that sister was saying in the 1880s, which is ridiculous. But anyway, uplifting that pedagogy and making sure that people have it so they are more learner ready. And the last one is pipeline. We spend a lot of time, we raise money to ensure that we can do teacher apprentices and paid apprenticeships for high school and college students. So these youth who are interested in educational justice, what McGuire talked about, if they are interested in teaching first, second, and third graders how to read, support their literacy, particularly around phonics and comprehension, we pay them to do that. And then we also offer dual enrollment courses during the day and supports like that. So it's a paid apprenticeship along with that. And then we're going to hopefully next month announce a Black Educator Scholarship for last dollar scholarship for Black youth who want to become teachers. So we're excited to launch that, as well as our Freedom Schools Literacy Academy, which is the paid apprenticeship. So by the end of this month, we'll be recruiting high school, Black and brown high school and college students who are interested in this apprenticeship, where they'll be working with first, second, and third graders supporting their literacy efforts as well as their positive racial identity, while they're also doing their own leadership development plan. So we're excited. We call them the 4 Ps: policy, pipeline, pedagogy, and professional learning.
So 2 follow-ups to yours, Reef. One is your literacy program. Is that just in the Philly area that you're doing that in? And if so, have you thought about expanding that further out into other areas? Because, I would definitely love to get something popping like that in Kansas City.
Yeah, no, listen, Kansas City's on our list, bro. Had had some conversations early with Cornell and Brother Edgar, who's supporting the Latino population and education. So yeah, last year we were national. We had 25% of our folks were outside of Pennsylvania. And so, I think because of COVID, that was one of the responses. Families gave us feedback like, no, don't just stop doing it because you're not doing it in person. Consider still supporting. And so we did that initially, really looking at Pennsylvania, but then the word got out and we had students as far away as California. We had one child and we were like, you sure, Mom? That's a 3-hour time difference. You're like, listen, my child is up. Her father leaves at 5. And so 5:30 a.m. we're good. But we had, particularly in the Midwest, we had a lot from Illinois and Michigan, as well as up and down the 95 corridor, on the East Coast. So yeah, we're continuing. We're right. I think this year we're looking for 200 high school students. And no, I'm sorry. I think we're looking for 100 high school students, 200 first, second, and third graders, and 50 college students.
All right. We need to wrap offline. I got a young man I mentor. He's working on his undergrad, going into education. So I definitely want to start helping him network and connect and things like that. And then I got another follow up. Let's get to that in a minute. So we appreciate everybody that's in the comments. For those of you that are on Facebook, listening to us live and watching, please like, share, get the word out, let everyone know what we're talking about and bring them into the conversation. So we want to take a question and the question, everybody can see it up there on the screen. Why is the bar so low for Black kids? And I think, part of my question, one of the questions I had was kind of around that, about, policy. Both of you all talked about policy and the importance of understanding what that is. But, in your work, have you seen that policy might be a hindrance, or policy is part of why the bar is low for Black kids? Or just in general, why is the bar low for Black children?
I'll jump in. I think one of the reasons why the bar is so low, first, is I would like to just recognize the fact that I think that our system in general, one of the things that doesn't always come up is that the educational system initially was never designed for us. It was never designed to address the vast array of cultures within our society. In addition to that, teachers who are in the field currently and in the past typically are not trained in cultural relevancy. They may not even have an idea of who they are and what their cultural background is, let alone know who these young Black kids are and where they come from and what richness of history they have as well. So that I think that policy piece, as far as some of the tying back to some of the training development as pre-service teachers, there's there's not enough training for those pre-service teachers to really expose them to the culture, to be able to infuse that, to help them to understand and help combat some of the biases that educators go through in the educational system in their training.
Yeah, I agree. In a word, I think it's racism. When people do not feel that they are accountable for children's success, it's very easy to lower the bar. When you have deep-seated racial biases and racist thoughts, as you're educating children, you are going to, one, believe what the narrative has been, the historic narrative from white people about our children. You are not going to be privy to how we talk about our children, how we raise our children, what we believe, what our aspirations are. So I think it's not only the racism, but there's no big intervention to address it, right? So if you're not getting that in teacher colleges, if you're not being pushed to confront your biases and racism in pre-service or in service, while you're in college or once you get to a school, that's a problem. I think a lot of educators, unfortunately, they have these biases. It's not interrupted. And I've been told directly by some who say, like, oh, of course I love kids. I showed up. I chose to be in this particular school. And so I think the mindset of the educators is absolutely so important. And we only spend a minuscule amount of time dedicated to pushing people, challenging people, and getting them to wrestle and interrogate their mindsets about other people's children.
So I think, why the bar so low, and I can only I'm gonna speak for Indianapolis, Indiana, just because I try to be entrenched into the education landscape. I think first it comes to, you have white educators that get in this field to be a savior, right? So they're trying to save some black child, and then black educators, they're in this because they feel sorry for them. So you have ones that are trying to save them and those that are feeling sorry, and they're not looking at these children with what they are, which is the royal bloodline, right, of kings and queens, and they don't see the potential. Enough of them don't see the potential that's in these black kids. And so it's like, well, I'm just help them just get by, right? Instead of saying, I'm going to help this child excel and be exceptional. And so for me, it's those two waves that people ride. They ride the wave of, I'm trying to save them, or I feel sorry for them. Instead of saying, I see excellence, I see greatness in this child, and I'm going to educate and teach them. And Brother Elmeki said, Juwanja Kajufu, Black Students, a Middle Class Teacher was the first book that I read because I was a black teacher and I did grow up middle class. And you automatically assume because I'm black, I understand where my students come from. But my black walk in life is slightly different. And just understanding that and knowing that you approach things differently. But some black educators, they just think because they look like a child that that's all you need to have. And that's not it. And so for me, it's that it's savior and it's feeling sorry for them.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm gonna echo, just really not getting to go deep into it, but to echo what David said, I just feel like the bar is set so low because a lot of the people that's in these schools don't believe in not just black kids, black people in general. You know what I'm saying? They don't believe that we can do great things, but don't understand that, when we look at things like social media, TikTok, and all those stuff like that, when you put it in the hands of a black child, the creativity that comes out in them. So they just think if I can't guide you or make you do X, Y, and Z the way I want you to do it, then you can't do it at all. Instead of using the creativity that comes along with the black child to help them be able to discover things on their own. And there's too many people in classrooms are trying to teach facts instead of trying to educate kids on how to go out and find the facts on their own. So I just believe it boils down, for me, it boils down to people just don't have a belief that black people, period, can do things great.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Demetrius.
No, I was just going to follow up with that and kind of going back into our topic. So we know that this exists, this level of racism, this level of saviorism by white educators. And how do we bring other black males or, black people, period, into education, understanding that this is the environment that we're walking into?
Look, Bob, when you said that, it got me thinking of, so as a first generation college student, right, to go into teaching, for me, I had to have that moment. And so for me, like I said, it was junior year of high school. I had a math teacher, older white guy, who complained about all the black males in the building and how we were X, Y, and Z. And I just asked him, I said, well, did you ever think about we act this way because there's nobody in this building that looks like us, right? And that, saying that out loud, right, was kind of my moment. And I just said, like, I'm not going to allow any other black kid to go through what I went through, which is you go to a diverse high school in a diverse community, and kindergarten through 12th grade, you have one black male teacher, and there was a 7th grade social studies teacher, and he was half the year. That shouldn't be the normal. And that question that always says how many black male teachers you've had, we got to get away from that. But for me, it was that fire moment, right? That moment where something just sparked the flame. But what we need to do now is to see the avenues in teaching, see that through teaching, through education, you can make good money. You can take care of your family. You can buy nice things. You can have a productive life. You can get 9 weeks off in the summer if you wanted to and still get paid. They need to see all those things, but it doesn't happen unless educators, particularly black males, are elevating the profession and speaking highly about it day in and day out.
And that's what I was gonna say. Like the people that's in the profession that we have to use our platform to change the narrative, because the narrative is a white woman dominated career field that's going to be subservient to other things like that. So how do we change the narrative to make sure that we are pushing that there? And one of the things that I would love for our guests to speak on is we're talking about getting first generation and more Black males into it, and something I just started to read more on and I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not an expert in this. This is not what my doctorate is. But do you feel that Brown versus the Board of Education did more detriment to the Black community when it comes to educators than it did for helping Black kids get educated?
I mean, I can jump in. I mean, there's definitely, plenty of research and studies that show that there was a consequence to Brown versus Board. And while it's a, historic marker, we often forget about all the consequences, so we're talking about over 30,000, maybe 35 to 38,000 Black teachers and principals fired, laid off, demoted, or whatever. Because what we have to recognize is, schools, white districts were incentivized to, take the children, right? So you got more fun, you got federal dollars to take the children. Some, like in Virginia, said, we don't want it. We'll just shut this whole thing down. And they closed school. Closed school because they didn't want Black children, where others said, hey, we'll take your Black children, but we're not going to take those adults. We'll take these Black children, but it's no way in the world we're going to have Black people leading, white people or teaching white children. And so that mindset was, deeply, entrenched in a whole lot of schools. But, and often you hear like, oh, this is what was going on in the South. This was, that mindset is pervasive around the country. And so we saw that in all kind of places play out in different ways, where in Boston, they had riots similar to what we saw at the Capitol about, Black children going to, white schools. So it's, it definitely wasn't just a Southern thing. And I think we lost, one of the things that Dr. Martin Luther King talked about was he said, I'm fighting for desegregating public spaces where, we're paying and we have to sit in the back of the bus or different fountain, different bathrooms. I'm fighting for that. I'm not fighting for our children to be taught by people who think less of them. That's not what it is. And he warned Black educators not to give up their power, not to give up our future, which is our children. And so that piece, looms large as far as like what occurred. And, to your other question, as far as recruitment, I think we have to, what I can just share what got me into the profession, and it seems to resonate with some of the other youth. A lot of our youth are interested in activism, fairness, justice. And when Dr. Martin Ryder, a Black man who worked for the district, and he was recruiting Black men, he talked about, okay, you want to be an activist, and you're interested in racial justice. Educational justice and racial justice are deeply intertwined. You can't separate the two. And that, teaching a classroom and teaching well was one of the purest forms of activism, James Baldwin said teaching Black children is a revolutionary act, right? And so that whole conversation, when Maya Angelou talks about the fight to eradicate illiteracy, should be held with the same fervor as it was to eradicate enslavement of human beings in this country. So like that, when we share those kind of, paradigms and worldviews with youth, I think it will be more attractive. And we have to make sure that we are fighting for the conditions for them to be successful, the supports both in college and beyond, and also that we are challenging schools and districts to make sure that they are putting in place and doing the hard work of ensuring the prerequisites for recruiting more Black men, Black women, and Latino community is done. What are the prerequisites to retain those folks? Not just, oh, I'm on the safari and I'm hunting for the elusive Black man, because that, that I can see also happening. I can also see the other piece of recruiting, but not changing any of the conditions, not changing the funding, not changing the accountability system. And then saying 10 years later, like, well, we recruited more, they didn't fix it, and that goes back to that invisible tax. Like, wait a minute, we're supposed to fix racism. We're supposed to fix the schools that you built, all those kind of things.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I'd also add having programs that expose our young high school students, juniors, seniors to the opportunity to actually intern in programs that let them get in front and work with other young youth. I had the opportunity. What brought me into the career of education was in high school. I was recruited by a man by the name of Dwayne Duterrell, and he saw something in me that I didn't see. And he said, I want you to come work with me. You're going to be a teacher's aide, and you're going to be working with some from 3rd, 4th, 5th grade African-American boys, helping them with their academics, helping them with their attendance. And I had no idea that was going to impact my life. And on top of that, I had no idea that I was going to, one, like it, two, grow and understand myself a little bit more, and come to the realization that I wanted to teach and that I was good at it. So I think giving our young high school students more opportunities, paid opportunities, that was mentioned earlier, I think would have a significant impact in recruiting more Black male educators. But in addition to that, it can't just be all about recruitment. It also has to be focused on retention. How are we going to create that pipeline and that continuation of they get that opportunity to teach, and then you support them financially to go to school and finish a degree, and helping them, ushering them into the field to maintain a sense of retention with those individuals.
So you talk about retention, and I think one of the biggest deterrents or people that reason why Black males leave education is because they're seen as, the disciplinarian, of the school. So when they have the kid that's most difficult to work with, or the group of kids, they want to put them in that Black male teacher's classroom to try to turn them around or whatever. And not saying that you can't do that work or whatever, but you're not seen as an educator first. You're seen as a disciplinarian first, and then the educator second. So what could we provide for leaders out there to kind of help them not put that burden all on the Black male educator? What advice would you give to leaders around that area?
That's a really good question. Sharif, you want to hit on that one?
Yeah. I mean, I do think one, calling it out. Dr. John King, former Secretary of Ed, used to call this, the invisible tax. What are these undue pressures? I think every group of folks should read, who are interested in this work should read If You Listen, We Will Stay, which was published by Teach Plus and Ed Trust. So they combined to do surveys. They were policy fellows, Black and brown policy fellows across the country who collaborated, did research, and then came up with some principles. I'll put it in the chat, a link for it. But if you listen, we will stay. And basically saying, listen to us. Ask us, how do we experience your leadership? Ask us, how do we, and not just at the exit interview stage, throughout the process. What does it feel like to be a Black man in this school? How do you experience that? What can I do better? Right? Because sometimes if you're such a small, you're one or two Black men, even in these anonymous surveys that more principals are doing, sometimes the democratic process for, the minority group, and I hate that term, but, the small number of folks, you can disappear, right? So 98% of the folks say, yeah, we like this. Because that's a racist policy. And the two Black folks in the school consistently vote no on those type of policies, but the principal stands up and say, hey, 98% like this, so this is what we're going to do. How oppressive is that for folks? And one of the things we're doing at the Center for Black Educator Development, we're working with our state Department of Ed to come up with toolkits that districts and states can use as they are trying to provide culturally responsive teaching, and sustainable teaching, education, mentorship, recruitment, and retention. So here's a toolkit that you can use to try to increase the retention. But a whole lot of it comes from, being humble and listening and really trying to understand what they experience. How do people experience, proximity to you, working in your space, and so forth. So that takes a level of humility. It takes a servant leader orientation, and we need more of it.
Jonathan, is there anything that you wanted to add regarding that? Just give you the space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Sorry, I'm taking. I need to say I'm taking notes because I'm a processor, so I like to reflect back on some learnings, because I'm just hearing a lot of things and I don't want to lose anything. I'm gonna let you proceed with the next question.
All right, so let's. We got it up on the screen. Go ahead,
Here
Doc.
we go. Yeah. So as you can see, we're going to talk about how do Black unions help with supporting the initiative to increase 2%. So, I wouldn't even just say Black unions. I would just say unions in general. Like, what are teacher unions doing to help recruit more Black males or Black people in general into the profession?
I mean, is that a thing?
It's not enough. I mean, I would say there are, like, if you look up the NEA, they are trying to do things. I know more about some of the NEA's work than the AFT's. I think what you'll find in the unions, you'll have different groups. Like I know in Philadelphia, the Caucus of We, that is one of their platform initiatives to increase the number of Black and brown teachers, and they are serious about it as part of their agenda every single year. It's not like, oh, we're going to focus on this year and next year we're going to focus on something else. You see a lot of union, at least the groups, right? Everything's local, right? And so the national NEA, I know they are, doing things, but we need their membership to push them and challenge them much, much further. I think they had their first Black woman as president, ever. I think the AFT also, has a lot of work to do in that space. But this is where we need membership, to really push and challenge the organizations that they are part of, the organizations they pay dues to do something differently. But I think what you'll find is in local chapters, you'll see different things. Local chapters are signing on to Black Lives Matter Week of Action. And one of the principles of that initiative that's, national, and I know places like Seattle and Philadelphia have been leading this, this effort. Again, teacher diversity is one of the principles of that, right? And so what I think we have to do is start organizing and making sure we know all the folks, like we're all the Black male educator focused groups, right? And so bringing them together, making sure that they are solidified. And so when we organize and our voice is amplified, and then we're sharing the platforms, then that is just far more powerful than doing these one-shot deals here, there, and there. And so I think there's a lot of potential for us to do that. Starting now, like how are the different ways we can collaborate and push and challenge those folks with the power to do that, as well as support the HBCUs and the Black K-12 institutions, because that's where you're likely going to find more people that look like us in and leading those schools and classrooms.
I know, adding on to that, I know here in Minnesota, I had mentioned the act, the Increase of Teachers of Color Act. So I know our local union here, Education Minnesota, and also AFT, the local chapters here, are doing some significant work around that legislation. But one of the things that I've noticed that's kind of a concern is that I think there also needs to be some focus on what are the benefits for Black educators, what are the benefits of teachers of color to participate more actively in the unions. Because I think one of the pieces I've learned coming across working with other teachers of color is that they say, well, why would I be? What's the benefit, and what are they actually doing? So I think that local unions need to do a better job of actually articulating how and what they're doing, particularly for the Black community in the Twin Cities area. They kind of fall short on that a little bit. So I think that's one of the things they need to focus on.
Also, I want to jump back. Mama Toya put up earlier, and we kind of, have to deep into another this conversation, but and I guess this was directly towards the AOS people host on this show. But
you ain't got to guess. She said the AOS. What are y'all doing? They're like, oh, I guess, I think, maybe. Let me reread it. Nah, tell them Mama Toya.
So Dave, I'm gonna talk to you. It's like, what are you doing in your building to really build a succession plan for yourself with Black males in your building?
So I think, being a school leader in a charter school, controlling hiring, controlling those things, I feel like I'd need to create a factory where Black male teachers can come in, grow and develop as teachers, grow and develop as leaders, grow and develop as Black men in the community. And hopefully I can elevate them send the elevator back down for them to ride it, that they can take my job. And I think if you're working in a space as a leader and you're developing people, specifically Black males, you should be developing them in a space where they should be able to take your job. And so I say that all the time to the Black males I bring in, the Black males I have in the building now. I need one of you to take my job, right? So I hope I can, excel in my career. And then the succession plan is that you take the seat. And so, with the 5 of us in the building, that's the plan. It's got to be one of them. Most of my staff is predominantly Black. And so I hope it is one of them, but I particularly wanted to be a Black male, because how powerful is it for my kindergartners to say, I had a Black male principal when I was in kindergarten, and my entire elementary, I've had the same, I've had a Black male principal. That's power. And there's power when they say they can have it for teachers. And so for me, the 5 of us, I got 4 shots for somebody to take my job. And so I'm just continuing to put them in a space and give them opportunities where they can grow and develop. And as I learn things, I share with them, and I provide the avenues and opportunities.
One of the things that I've always done is, when I was a classroom teacher, I always had conversation with my Black male students, even Black female students, just ask them the question, have you ever considered becoming a teacher? That's one of the questions that I never really got until I started to express interest when I was in high school. I've been in a K-8 school. I've been in mostly high school and middle school. And I always try to do that. One of the things I've really been blessed is to live in the communities that I've served in as an educator. And so I always think about that. My community always has their eyes on me, because there's usually only a couple of Black males in our schools. And so I feel like I'm always on, and it's not fake, because I'm really passionate. I really enjoy being an educator. I really enjoy living in the communities that I live in. And so I know that people always have their eyes on me, whether it's, parents, students, whatever. And so I always ask that question of students. And right now I'm truly blessed, because my son is one of my students. He's a 6th grader in my middle school. And I always keep in mind, I don't say to him that I want him to be a teacher, but I always talk to him about leadership. And I always talk to him about his role, because he is, he's got 3 younger siblings. And I always talk to him about how important it is that he models what it means to be a leader, what it means to do the right thing all the time. And that's hard. I get that. There's a little bit of pressure there, but having those conversations and being that example, we're still in remote right now. And so I try to communicate with my community, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's my weekly community update, but just seeing this, promoting the positivity in the role that I have is really important. And so I just try to magnify that all the time and just be that example. And right now there aren't a lot of us in the district, but we try to network, we try to stay together as Black male leaders in the district. And so I think that's one of the things that we have to continue to do. Build those networks, make those connections, build those relationships, and set that example.
For me, it comes down to, you got to be able to play the long and the short game. Like, you have to play. What I mean by that is, the long game is like, how do I get my current middle schoolers or high school students to get interested in this field, so that when they do go into college, they go into college with the idea that I want to be an educator. Too many of the Black males that I know in my circle here in Kansas City, we all came in education, either the non-traditional route, or it was a 2nd or 3rd major when we got to college. It wasn't the first thing that we wanted to go to. So I do that by, whenever I'm having a career fair or we're talking about careers, I'm making sure education is one of those careers we're talking about. Yeah, we're going to talk about the STEM careers and things like that, but education is definitely one of the things we're going to put at the forefront. When we're going to career fairs, we want to make sure we have educators at career fairs and things like that. When we're doing college visits, we want to talk to the College of Education people, just like we want to talk to the College of Engineering and all those other things as well. So that's one thing with the long game, is making sure our kids that I will service today have a long range plan of becoming educators. But then on the short game, because I can't wait 8 years for them to go through college to finally come back and teach. So whenever I have a Black male sub in my building, I want to talk to him about, hey, what do you need to do to get certified? Where are you at in that process? We got a program here called the Kansas City Teacher Residency Program, which takes teacher or people that's already had their degree into a residency program and helps them get their teacher's license within a year. And just this year alone, I've gotten 2 Black males into that program just this year. So just really trying to find those people, or the 2 Black males that I have in my building now. How can I help undergird them. One of them is much older than me and probably on the back end of his career, but still, how do I help encourage him to kind of motivate that next generation as well? So that's kind of, you have to play the long and short game. How can I find people today to get into my building? Because like I said, there's only 3 of us in my building, but I do have, out of my 38 certified teachers, 15 of my teachers are Black, which is very unusual in any building that I've ever worked in a non-charter environment. So knowing how to play the long and short game, getting people in your building today, but then also helping kids in high school and middle school now know that education is a viable career path for them. And that just goes back to what I said before. We have to change the narrative. The people that's in the position now have to change that narrative. So I think we run up on that hour time frame. So we're going to jump into final thoughts. We're going to let you go first, Mr. Jones. Your final thoughts. It's your chance to kind of speak on whatever it is you want to speak on. And then the GOAT, we'll have the GOAT go after that. And then we'll do our AOS rundown with Dave Ball. And then I'll shut it down at the end. So Mr. Jones, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. First, I'd like to say thank you very much for the invite. This has been very enlightening and very humbling to be in everybody's midst. Gave me some additional things to think on and to move on in the near future. Additional thoughts. Is it all right if I do a plug, or is that not the time?
It's your time, bro. Do what you got to do.
So for those of you who do not know, this is one of the things that my company is doing. This is Uplift, which is the first annual publication of Black male educators across the country. This is the first edition. And we are currently in production for the second edition. When we get this, it will come out every fall. And the goal is to highlight in the next 10 years, 400 Black male educators across the country. The goal is to get those individuals and celebrate the work that they are doing across the country. And a portion of the proceeds is going back to a local organization called Black Men Teach Twin Cities, who has the same parallel mission as my company. So we are currently looking for applicants. So you can find out more information at ideation4.com and apply. Even if we're looking for pre-service teachers and in-service teachers. And that is also K-12 and also higher ed as well. So if you brothers, I'm hoping you brothers will apply. And if you have folks in your network, shoot them our way so we can get them into the next issue.
What's the website that we need to go to in order to get signed up to apply?
Ideation4.com, and on the main page there's actually there's an application process. So ideation4.com. I'll throw it in the chat.
All right,
appreciate it.
Yeah, so my final thoughts is also I echo that. Appreciate y'all coming on. Really excited about the work that y'all are doing. Ball, does that says Philadelphia on that purple flag behind you? I wasn't sure. It caught my eye though.
You know what it is. You know what it is.
It looked like it say Philadelphia. I don't know. Shout out to Hassan Sabri, Black male educator in Camden, been doing great work. And just seeing can't wait to read the comments, all of them, because it seems like there's some really rich information. I would say, very consistent with what you all said. When I started with the group of men, the fellowship, Black Male Educators for Social Justice, it was 17 of us, several working on their PhDs and had their masters, were effective in what they did. And what we realized as we were getting to know each other, that no one had invited us to become an educator in our youth. And that was 17 Black men. And so one of the first things we did was ask our colleagues. Many of them were white women. And the average response that we got was 3rd grade. So one group of people, white females, they were saying, oh, 3rd grade, someone tapped me on the shoulder and asked me to consider teaching. For Black men, we were all invited into the profession after we had graduated college. So there's a whole lot. There's a whole nother show about the psychology of all of that. But it's something really important that we need to, pay attention to. Secondly, we are at the end of this month, in early February, we will want to recruit. So we are looking for you brothers, as well as the audience. If you know those, the best and brightest educator, activists, aspiring educators, Black and brown communities who want to teach through this paid apprenticeship, please send them our way. I put our website in there. We will pretty soon you'll be able to sign up for updates, and then the application will come automatically to you. And, we spoke about this on Freedom Fridays a little while ago, this idea of mentorship. Every Black man, and the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. So yes, definitely we should play the role of mentors, but also be sure to sponsor some Black male educators, give them that additional support. And that's what we hope to do when we announce this, this scholarship. Hoping, 15 years from now, I'm hoping it's $1 billion endowment, but in the meantime, I'd be, I think our first goal over the next 5 years is to raise, between 50 and 100 million for a Black educator scholarship. So that's what we're looking forward to do. Thanks again for having us on.
Appreciate y'all coming. Go ahead, Dave.
Absolutely. We appreciate both of y'all for coming on. My final thoughts is simple. I'm going to stick to increasing the 2%, but I'm going to talk about the 2% from that early literacy piece and being an elementary principal. And it's something that I'm passionate about. So I'm going to read something. It says, phonological and phonemic awareness are important components to literacy. Literacy is built on these two as the foundation. If they're not solid, everything else will suffer and children will struggle to read. We got to teach our babies how to read. I also want to make sure that we can get more Black males teaching kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, even in pre-K, to help not only build those foundations from literacy, but they're getting that joy and love from reading from Black males. So in addition to increasing the 2%, I got to push now to get more Black males in elementary. So let's make sure we do that. But that's my final thoughts. Appreciate the brothers being on. As always, Profound Gentlemen, I got the copies, 7 copies. If you want one, hit us up an email. And hey, we'll purchase some copies too. That's how we do it. I buy copies all the time. So you let me know where to buy them. I'll buy some of those and get those out as well. I'll buy 7 for the jewels.
Go ahead.
All right. So, I just mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm kind of going through the hiring process right now. And I think it's very important for us to be very conscious of our approach to how we are recruiting, how we're interviewing, and what that whole thing looks like. Because when we're at the HR level, when I'm having conversations about how we do things, we're not doing enough steps to be active to diversify our candidate pool. And we need to be breaking down barriers in order to have more Black men, more Black women, more people of color to have opportunities to apply for our positions. We're not being active enough. So, I just wanted to close out and just say, be active, be proactive when it comes to your hiring processes. And I just want to share one book that I've been looking at, The Better Allies Approach to Hiring. It's been really eye-opening to me to look at some of the questions that get asked in interviews, some of the things that come up in that process. So let's just make sure that we're being aware and that we're being active in how we approach hiring to make sure that we're getting diverse candidates and not just going with the status quo.
And then for me, before I jump into my final thought, I do want to take care of a couple of things. So this was a very important conversation. Like I said, this was part 2 for us. So if you watch this, you got something out of it, please share, comment, do whatever you got to make sure people get to see this. Make sure you go follow AOS Podcast on Twitter, Facebook. Also, I got to give a big shout out to our super producer, Podcast Diddy, Uncle Ray, who keeps us on our grind, keeps us on our toes. So we appreciate you, Unc, for everything that you do to keep us moving forward and keep us pushing. My final thought, since this is Inauguration Day, I got to go back to, the greatest president that I've ever known, Mr. Barack Obama, the quote by him. The quote goes, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek." If we want to change this 2%, it's going to take people like me, Ball, David, Sharif to push the narrative forward that we need more Black males and educators. We're going to have to go out and find them, mentor them, uplift them, and bring them into this profession and try to change that 2%. We can't wait for somebody else. Biden's not going to do it. Harris not going to do it. The next president of the United States after Biden ain't going to do it. It's going to take people like us that got boots on the ground to make this happen. So I appreciate y'all and everything that you're doing. Anybody out there, please reach out to a Black man. Just let them know we need you to come into this profession to change the game for Black kids across this country. You have been listening to episode 14 of the AOS Podcast. We truly appreciate our guests for coming on. Mr. Jones, we appreciate your time. Sharif the GOAT, it's always a pleasure to be in your presence, sir. With that,
good to
we
see
out.
you.
Libations tonight.
Go, Mom.
Oh, yeah.